let's start with Oregon, right? We already talked about their quarterback room, but let's talk about who those quarterbacks are going to be throwing to. This receiver room is loaded, right? It's loaded. I mean, it has to be in the top three, top five in all of college football.
The pure depth and like yeah, they've even said Willie Stein, I'm sorry, and others have said like they're gonna plan on playing as many wide receivers at once as possible. There's a variety of skill sets on this team. They talked about doing five wide, which I think would be pretty deadly, especially with a guy back there, which we talked about in a quarterback video that can really decipher and like just dice up and really surgically dice up the defense and pick his plan, the matchup he likes, what's the defense giving him, and then yeah, I love it here. I mean, yes, you lose Troy Franklin to the NFL draft. Yes, was he really uber productive for you? Absolutely. But hey, we're gonna go and pluck a transfer portal guy to replace him in Evan Stewart, and maybe a different little skill set there, but doesn't mean he's not damn good. And he has turned quickly into an alpha in this wide receiver room for Oregon, like many of us expected.
Yeah, I mean, he was a five-star recruit coming out of high school, uh, over up there in near Dallas. I mean, he's a really good football player, right? I know A&M fans are not insanely happy with how things ended there. Was he injured? Was he not injured? Was he just waiting for his NIL contracts to expire before he entered the transfer portal? Whatever the case, it doesn't matter. If anything, Evan Stewart is trying to put himself in the best possible position to succeed with his skill set, and I don't think he made a bad choice. So I do not think he made a bad choice at all. So I'm excited for him. He's a little bit on the smaller end, like 5'11", maybe, like 180
If
some
that
pounds, like and some change, maybe. But his athleticism is freakish, right? Like he has made some absolutely acrobatic catches in his time. He's also insanely fast. If you remember his freshman year, squaring off against Terrion Arnold. I mean, Terrion Arnold just got drafted, to the Lions in the first round, and he absolutely cooked Terrion Arnold every single time he was matched up against him. It was a matchup nightmare. It was a matchup nightmare. And this is a guy who's
yeah.
just on the smaller end, right? Terrion Arnold's a decently sized corner. So yeah, fantastic player in Evan Stewart. Let's talk about another transfer. Let's talk about Trayshawn Holden. I'll let you kind of take over the Trayshawn Holden business.
He's guy came in from Alabama, kind of, a little bit of the, looks like uh Tarzan plays like Jane type thing, early on his career at Alabama, big physical dude. Obviously, struggled to find a field, consistent playing time. Bama had a year or two where they had some openings right on their roster, and wide receiver was a need, and they were hoping Holden would develop into that. Never really came to fruition at Alabama. Last year came over to Oregon and put together some nice things. He didn't start every game, but he played a lot of snaps, did some nice things for him. And again, it's a nice complement to your smaller receivers and Evan Stewart and Tess Johnson we'll talk about later. Holden's a little bit bigger bodied, can match up with some physical corners, moving to the Big Ten.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like this a lot. And then we keep going down the list here, right? And then you get to Tess Johnson, right? And you're like, wow, not only is this guy productive, right? Like with the ball in his hands, he is so explosive, right? And that's what you love with Troy Franklin, right? Troy Franklin, yeah, he was a burner too, and like on that, he was a deep threat, but once Troy Franklin had the ball in his hands too, like it was pretty dangerous, like especially when he was like at the second level and like had a chance to when he saw an open field, like he was absolutely burning, right? Tez Johnson is the same way. Uh, Absolutely nuts. I see you have written down here as a junior, he averaged 3.45 yards per route run. That is nuts. That is
Malik Neighbors,
nuts.
that's him and Malik Neighbors, which is just crazy. And Neighbors is six overall pick and probably should have won the Blitnikoff.
Yeah, and a 93.4% open target rate, 99th percentile of all FBS receivers. So not only is this guy explosive when he gets the ball in his hands, right? Sometimes you get some of those guys where like you're like, oh, this guy's explosive, like Malachi Corley, for example. So they're gonna like send him on little short crossing routes, bubbles. They're gonna try to get him the ball in his hands as much as you can, but under 5 yards. Tess Johnson's getting open too, man. It's not that he's just explosive with the ball in his hands. He's getting open. So that's nuts. And when you pair that with the quarterbacks that they got in there, Dylan Gabriel, who I would say is a pretty accurate quarterback, especially uh, medium to short range. This feels like it's going to be nice for Tess Johnson. We're talking about a very good season possibly for Tess Johnson.
Well, and I mean, he had over 1,000 yards last year. But yeah, I think specifically with that run up to catchability is Gabriel can just put it on the dime and hit him in stride to be able to do things after. I mean, he had nice rapport with Bo Nix, who obviously had a connection beforehand. If you don't know that story, I'd encourage you to look it up. It's really beautiful. They're actually adopted brothers, which is awesome. And so obviously, Tez Johnson came from Troy, undersized guy, not many questions to see if he could hold up in the Power Five conference, and he was unbelievable in his first year at Oregon. Comes back, him and Evan Stewart, Holden, and whoever we'll get to next is going to be a dynamic duo. And speaking of who we're going to get into next, I want to talk about Gary Bryant Jr., former highly rated recruit, right? From USC, transferred in last year, a lot of buzz, started a lot of games. He can do a lot of things for you. Maybe the production didn't quite line up with the recruiting pedigree, but there was also a ton of production to go around in front of him. And I also not even mention Bucky Irving with that passing game as well. Took away a lot of touches from Bryant. And I think he's a guy that's going to be put in a nice position this year, especially if you're going to have these teams that are going to be keen on Stewart and Johnson and Bryant, what he can do from the outside and even in the slot as well. Especially if you're running 4 wide, 5 wide, and you're going to have multiple slot receivers on at the same time, and you're playing their fourth or fifth or sixth DB, and it's like, wow. Or if you're matched up on a linebacker, I mean, that's why I think Willie Stein is going to have a field day with these wide receivers. What say you?
I agree. I mean, he was productive, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns on 30 receptions. Like, played a lot of football, and he was, like you said, he was a highly rated recruit. And also, he's got pretty sure hands. In the time that we've seen him play, he's only got about 3% drop rate, which is, pretty good. It's better, actually, it was best on the team, for people that played in more than 12 games. So, I mean, look, he has a chance to be a really good player. And if he's not a starter on this team, right, because we already talked about 3 pretty dang solid receivers, like he will add value to this team in one way or another. I believe that thoroughly. Um, just good talent, man. I mean, again, another kind of smaller receiver, 5'11", 185. Like, it'd be interesting to see the makeup of these wide receivers seems to be they're pretty small, right? They're pretty small. But let's get into a guy that's a little bit bigger. Let's talk about a 6'2", 215-pound Jurian Thicke, 5-star out of high school. He's just a good football player, man.
Yeah.
You have to look at the physical traits, right? And you have to look at what the team is lacking, which is some of those physical traits. And you got to think that there might be a chance for him to excel in a role that, um, to excel in a specific role in this team.
Yeah, no, he was a guy that obviously came with a lot of pedigree, expectations in year one, but obviously he was buried on the depth chart and also got hurt as well. And he was kind of recovering. It just slowly got to him. He didn't feel better. He didn't say he felt better until November. And by then he played 4 games plus the bowl game 5. So he maintained his red shirt, which was nice for Oregon and for Dickey as well. But yeah, another guy, he a little bit bigger, like you said. Physical tools are out of this world, just like the reason why he was a 5-star. Different complement to guys like Johnson and Stewart and Bryant as well. In the mold of Holden, but a little bit more explosive, in my opinion. And just get you a nice versatility. And again, why we love this room, because the different bodies, the different like mechanisms that you can do, and different route concepts and everything you want in an offense, explosive offense. Dickey gives you that presence there as a young guy in the room, eager to learn and get better going into year 2.
Absolutely. And then another guy though that has physical traits in this team, this wide receiver, again, this list is long. That's why we're talking about this team, because this list is long, right? Kyler Casper, 6'6". I think he played at 205 last year. I don't think we'll see if he gets up to the weight that he wants to get up to, which is about 220 pounds. He did not have a lot of reps last year. I think he took about 50 reps in the pass snaps, or 50 pass snap reps. So that's about 50 routes run.
Mm-hmm.
Ran pretty much everything from the outside. I mean, that's what you would expect him to do, like, let's get that big guy on the outside. Did not show any sort of production in these meaningful games at all. But, again, another guy to look out for that has super physical or great physical traits. And if he can put on that weight and kind of carry himself well, and he could even find himself some reps here.
Yeah, Stein has been a guy that has talked up Casper all spring, and a guy that's really coming into his own in year two. Again, a different kind of body, 6'6". I mean, you're thinking about Deuce Robinson type over in USC with that speed and that size at 220 now, sure-handed. Obviously, a guy that wants to go up and get everything that he can catch the ball. But yeah, the Stein talked about last year how they only played four guys because they can only trust four guys, and I think part of that was the development or lack thereof of Casper, and then also Dickey not being healthy. Now you bring in Stewart to replace obviously Franklin, and also you got the development of year two guys here, and that gives you the confidence to play 4, 5, 6 guys in a game in this rotation. Again, different versatility, different things you can do to really take advantage of the strengths that are your offense and Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, I agree. Do you know what's funny? I'm looking at the stats right now. Uh, Going back to Gary Bryant Jr. He actually played more snaps, pass snaps than Trayshawn Holden.
Yeah,
You can believe
He
that.
technically started like 12 games last year, and so he played a lot. But I don't think I think a little bit more. I think he's a little bit redundant in terms of what Tess Johnson did. So I think part of it's like Tess Johnson kind of took over that role, and I think with the new offense coming in this year, not new offense, but just maybe a little bit openness to spread the ball around and get all these receivers on the field at once. I think Bryant's going to be able to take a step forward.
Yeah, man. The point is that this group is pretty outstanding. It's pretty outstanding. I would expect big things. And if you're gonna have a room full of quarterbacks, right, you gotta have a room full of receivers that they can throw to. And this is certainly a very solid room that they can throw to.